Hello, Julie here, and today I'm going to be sharing my process for creating a layout for the November challenge at Mystical Scrapbooks. I'm going to be using papers from the Mintay paper range called Grandma's Attic. The challenge has 2 mood boards for you to choose from, and the product of the month is stencils, so all of the stencils over at Mystical Scrapbook will be on sale this month. So to use a stencil on my layout, I'm going to use this Be Arty stencil, and it's called Be the Sunshine Abstract Daisy. I'm going to use my distress inks and a blending brush. So the distress ink I'm using is dried marigold, and I'm going to just randomly apply that ink through the stencil onto my background. I then used my same stencil and my modelling paste and a palette knife and added some modelling paste randomly onto my background as well. Now this, when it's dry, is white, so it's just to add some texture. You won't really see it as a loud thing, but I just wanted to add a bit more interest to the background. And of course, it's another way to use our stencils. Now while I'm waiting for my texture paste to dry, I'm going to start work with my pattern papers. As I said, I'm using Grandma's Attic from Mintay, and this product code is MTGAT03. I will only end up using this one sheet on this layout, so it's quite an economical layout. To start with, I'm going to cut the centre out of the sheet of paper, and I'm just going to leave a 1-inch frame. So from the piece that I cut out of the centre, I cut 5 strips 1.5 inches wide, so they end up being 1.5 by 10. And I'm going to distress all of the edges of those strips. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. I've got a Prima distressing tool, I've got this Tim Holtz distressing tool, which I find is probably a little more aggressive than the Prima one. And if you don't have a distressing tool, of course, you can use the blade on your scissors. Once I've finished distressing with my tool, I'm going to use my Versacolor black ink cube to ink around all of the edges. I went ahead and did this for all 5 of those strips. Now that my background is dry, I'm going to trim it down so that it's 11 3/8 inches square. I know that's a weird measurement, but that's just, I wanted a bit more of that green frame to be showing. Normally I'd just cut it down to 11.5. Now I'm going to distress the edge of my white panel with exactly the same techniques that I used on my strips. So distress it with my distressing tool and then ink around the edge of it with my black Versacolor ink cube. I've used a thin double-sided tape. This is about 1/8 of an inch wide, and I've run that around the whole outside edge of that white cardstock. Now I'm going to add that to my frame. I've just pushed back a little bit of each corner of the tape so that I can position it before all of that tape becomes exposed, and once that grabs, it's pretty hard to move it, especially with just that 1-inch frame. So that's just a little trick I learnt from watching YouTube clips, and very handy. Time now to start playing around with my strips. Now my initial plan was to have all of the strips the same, so use the green side of the strips. I had thought that I might change the lengths of the strips, but I just decided that I would just adjust their start and finish edges by moving them closer to one edge or the other. And then I started playing around with doing one green, one pattern, one green, etc. And then I thought, well, maybe I could just do all patterned or all green. So here, this process here is where I'm trying to decide which way to go with my strips of paper. I'll put this on fast forward so you can just see my process. In the end I decided to alternate the strips, so I've got a greener pattern, a greener pattern, a green. Which one did you think looked best? I mean, I didn't mind any of them really, and I was quite partial to all pattern, but I wanted to bring that green back in so that it tied in with my frame. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think you would have done if you were making this layout. So once I'd made my mind up, I just added double-sided tape to the back of each one of those strips and then started attaching them to my layout. Now I wanted them biased towards the bottom of the layout, so I've got a bit of white space at the top there. I used my ruler to make sure I got that top strip straight, and from there it's easy enough to follow the pattern down. Because I've got the texture paste on there, just to be on the safe side, I did go back later on and add some liquid glue to those strips just to make sure that they stick properly. Now my photo is 6x4 and I've used my emery board to file around the edge of the photo, which gives it like a very fine white border. Now I'm using double-sided tape to attach that to some black cardstock, and I'm going to trim that down so that it's got about 1/16 of an inch border all the way around. To give my photo a little more impact on my layout, I'm going to add some scrap cardboard to the back of it. I'm going to use my art glitter glue to attach the cardboard, and then I'll use the same glue to attach my photo to my layout. I have the pack of paper die cuts for this range, and I'm going to use those to embellish my layout. I choose a mixture of flowers and bingo ticket and a little ticket and a clock face, a few butterflies, and once I've decided what I'm going to put onto my layout, I use my ink cube once again and ink around all of the edges. I had a pretty little picket white lace that I wanted to add, so I'm just going to use my art glitter glue to run a bead of that and then lay my lace over the top on the top of that bottom strip of paper, from the edge of the paper to the photo. Just adds a little bit more interest. Time now to attach my embellishments, and I'm going to use my liquid glue to do that. Some of the pieces will have to have a little bit of scrap cardboard on half of them because they're going to overlap the photo. That will just help them to sit nice and level. I'm going to add a chipboard butterfly in here. It's from Memory Maze, Linda's Scribble and Butterflies, and I have painted it white. That will just be tucked in with my other embellishments. For my title, I've used my Kaisercraft DD700 alphabet uppercase die and some black cardstock and cut my title. I'm going to attach that so that it's sort of half on the green and half on the white, down on the bottom, or central left, I guess, of the layout. And once I have that attached, I'm going to use my glossy accents and give it a coat of glossy accents, which gives a nice clear finish when it's dry, and it sort of makes it look like glass. I'm going to use my Wink of Stella glitter pen to give that white chipboard butterfly a bit of sparkle. To add a little something else to my clusters, I'm going to use this uniquely creative die. It's called Little Leaves, and I've cut that from the same green paper that I've cut the same paper that I've used on the rest of the page actually. And I've cut quite a few. I didn't know how many I wanted, but I'm just going to add 3 of them in amongst my flowers. And that finishes my layout for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. As I said, this is for the challenge over at Mystical Scrapbooks, so I will put a link to the challenge in the description box, and I will also put a link to the product I have used, so if you're interested in that you can check it out. I hope you've enjoyed my video, and I hope you can join me when I post my next video. Bye.